Right, there's always controversy about the Bible and whether or not the facts align with history and archaeological facts. Joining me with their insight is Dr. Lawrence Geraty, the President Emeritus of La Sierra University, and Dr. Douglas Clark, the Associate Dean of the HMS Richards Divinity School. Welcome to the show. You guys traveled far today to be here, and we appreciate it.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Look at all these artifacts. Amazing. Thousands of years old.
Right, right.
Such an honor. Let's talk about what you've discovered, what you talk about in the school, and how the old times, the Old Testament and the Bible line up with the archaeological facts that you've discovered, and some that don't, right?
That's true. It is a mixed bag. And probably, Larry, tell me if I'm right on this, the farther back we go in time, the more challenging it is, partly because the evidence just isn't there. It doesn't exist anymore. It's disappeared, it has deteriorated, and so that adds a challenge. But there's a lot we have, a lot that is significant archaeologically that helps us understand the Bible better. Some of it forces us to ask new questions, and that's good too.
But a lot of the facts that you found in speaking with you do correlate with some of the biblical stories.
Very much so.
Okay, well let's start from the beginning. We're going to start with the Old Testament, and then later we'll go to the New Testament. Okay.
I think if we could look at an inscription, it's certainly my favorite inscription. It's a very small silver, what we call an amulet. It was just rolled up as a scroll, a very small thing.
Like talk about an inch?
Yes, an inch long,
wow.
And rolled up tight, and the image that we can see has it unrolled. And the text is interesting. Well, the discovery is interesting. It's in Jerusalem, Ketif Hinnom, it's a part of Jerusalem, and it is from the 7th century BC, so we're talking the time of Jeremiah, some of the prophets. And it is the earliest biblical passage found archaeologically. So outside of the text of the Bible, this is the earliest actual biblical passage.
And what is the passage
And
say?
the passage, which also makes it very nice, is the priestly blessing from the book of Numbers in the Old Testament. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine on you and be gracious.
Aww.
May the Lord lift his face to you and give you shalom, give you peace.
And how old is that again?
This is 2,700 years old.
2,700 years old, and wow, wow.
So that's one of those very nice connections with the biblical history.
Okay, so that correlates.
Very well.
A lot of people are going to love to hear that. Atheists may not, but of course. What else do we have?
Right, right. We're looking at the sanctuary of Arad, which is south of Jerusalem, and which, according to the biblical prophets, shouldn't exist. They said only Jerusalem is the only place for a temple. But
so this is a temple?
This is a temple, that's right. And we're looking on the right-hand side of the picture is the altar of sacrifice, and if you go right up toward the left, you get into the holy and the most holy place of the temple.
So this is a typical pattern in what we call the Levant, or what is now Israel, Palestine, Jordan, of an ancient temple. And what's happening, the problem is that this worship is going on here at the same time it was supposed to go on only in Jerusalem. And there are at least a couple other places like this. One is in Beersheba and one is in Tel Dan in the north. So you have 3 places where worship is going on. The Bible writers don't talk about it because it's not supposed to be happening there. That's an interesting tension within the biblical text itself. We have an inscription that was carved out of a wall, a tunnel wall. It's actually inscribed on the tunnel wall and then later carved out. Now is in Istanbul, Turkey. But it commemorates the completion of a water tunnel that King Hezekiah at the end of the 8th century, we're talking 701, 702, 703, somewhere, who dug this tunnel to bring water into Jerusalem in order to withstand the assault of the Assyrians who were menacing. And so this inscription talks about the diggers from both sides. This is 1,800 feet long, and they're coming at it from both sides, and it talks about hearing the picks of the other team and the breaking through and the celebration.
Very cool.
And the Bible tells the story, but the archaeologists have found the inscription that tells the story also. So you put those together.
And where do you find that in the Old Testament?
In the Book of Kings.
In the Book of Kings,
in the Second
right.
Kings. This is called the Taylor Prism. here.
The Taylor prism.
Think
Imagine
about this.
that.
I like it, and look how complicated it is.
You don't,
just like me.
You don't want to think of its age, though, because it's from...
Just like me. How old is
this
it?
This is 2,700 years old.
I feel
also.
like that sometimes.
But this one was written by Sennacherib, the Assyrian king, who assaulted Jerusalem right after that tunnel had been built. So the connection is with that tunnel. And in that inscription, he says, I penned up Hezekiah, the king of Judah, like a bird in a cage in Jerusalem.
And that's what it says.
And that's what that says.
And that's what the story says.
That's
That's
right.
the Bible.
And it's in the British Museum, that Taylor prism, but describes just what the Bible describes. So putting them together, you get a full picture of what happened.
Unbelievable. I love that.
And so here we're looking at a very small inscription. It's made by a seal, by a signet ring, or maybe a pendant that one would wear around one's neck. And it typically has 3 registers on it. Larry did part of his work in inscriptions at Harvard when he did his degree. And these are really interesting, but the one that we're looking at now has the name on it of Baruch. Now, it's Baruch Yahu, that's the full name. But in the book of Jeremiah, so here's another really positive correlation. In the book of Jeremiah, chapter 36, there is an accounting of how Jeremiah's scroll was to be proclaimed. And it was ultimately to go to the king, but to the people, start out with the people. And then the king destroys it, and then the story goes on in Jeremiah 36 to say, okay, we're going to start over with this scroll, which becomes the book of Jeremiah, which is the longest book in the Bible. It doesn't have the most chapters, but it's the longest book in the Bible. But on those inscriptions are the names of 4 individuals in that one chapter, including their father's name too. So Baruch, the son of Neriah, HaSofer, the scribe. And that is, you could quote that out of the book of Jeremiah. And there are 3 others all in that one chapter.